There are many controversies on whether we should use flu vaccination to cure all the flu viruses outside, because the selected virus strands, because the flu vaccination has selected virus strands for each specific season, and it's only based on an educated guess by the FDA, and it's not able to prevent infections of similar or mutated viral genes. Other studies indicate that there is approximately 2% of the vaccinated population will develop serious adverse events that lead to hospitalization, permanent disability, or death every year. However, these insignificant incidences are not sufficient evidence to deny the strength of the flu vaccination. The main proposition is that the seasonal flu vaccination will enhance health of the entire community. To prove this, I will first talk about its effectiveness, and second, the fact that it's safe for administration, and lastly, it's economically desirable. My first argumentation is that flu vaccination works effectively on seasonal flu viruses. The first proof is vaccinations incorporate most active viruses of the flu season. According to Al-Safari Monham, it inactivates virus infectivity by generating strand breaks in the genetic material and has further advantage. Compared with chemical agents of high penetration into and through biological materials, our data clearly show that a single intranasal administration of CAPRA H1N1 protects mice against lethal H5N1 and other heterotypic infections. The second proof is that flu vaccination is readily effective after 2 weeks of developing time. According to DRINCA PJ, currently the CDC recommends a minimum of 2 weeks prophylaxis for all residents of nursing homes, regardless of vaccination status, following a confirmed outbreak in the nursing home. Now that I've talked to you about the first argumentation, I'm going to then move on to the next, which is flu vaccination is safe to use. The first proof is that both children and pregnant women are safe for injection. According to Van Pugen Group, based on this, specific recommendations have been made for flu vaccination in pregnant women, both from CDC, the American College of Obstetrician and gynecologists in the U.S. and other official bodies like World Health Organization. According to that, the institution of influenza vaccination in pregnancy is necessary, given that the probability of morbidity in this period is increased by 10%. The second proof is that flu vaccination the flu viruses can be deadly. According to Halder, Ninimish, an alternative intervention measures is a pre-pandemic vaccine. A vaccine produced from isolated influenza virus strands that are considered most likely to emerge as pandemic strands, potentially lethal to humans. Now I have talked to you about the second claim. I'm going to move on to my last claim, which is flu vaccination is economically desirable. The first proof is that flu vaccination is more cost-effective when comparing to flu medications. According to Halder and Ninimish, total costs involve both direct healthcare costs and costs due to productivity loss due to illness and social distancing interventions. Pharmaceutical costs are also estimated. The second proof is that human immunity stores the previously injected flu vaccines for further prevention to avoid the cost of new vaccines. According to McCullough Jonathan, however, our data suggests that vaccination against a homologous or even close related strand is likely to significantly boost neutralizing responses to the pandemic H1N1 influenza. In conclusion, influenza vaccination is successful for first incorporating multiple viral genes of a specific season to prevent infections after 2 weeks. And And second, it's safe even for most pregnant women and children to prevent the deadly respiratory disease. And lastly, it's capable of lowering the cost and effectively store past viral genes in the human genome to prevent repetitive disease. Despite the fact that there are some incidences of negative side effects, the overall reactivity of flu vaccination is advantageous and beneficial to the whole community. Thank you.
Okay, the proposition is clearly identified. That's good. The contents are previewed. I like that. Except in the preview that your first point is not really stated as a declarative sentence. When you get to it in the body of the speech, you have a declarative sentence there, so that helps a little bit. Otherwise, the other 2 points were clearly stated as declaratives at the beginning, and then you had very clear signposts and transitions in the body of the speech. So everything is easy to follow when I'm looking at what the main claims are. Some of the evidence, though, needs a little bit more explanation. There was one piece of information that included a statistic about 10% morbidity, and I have no idea what that is referring to. In fact, it sounded to me like that it's people who are pregnant and get the flu vaccine have a 10% rate of morbidity. That sounds like it's going the exact opposite direction of what you're claiming. You are presenting a lot of evidence, for instance, with pieces of testimony, but then not telling us what that means. It's almost like you're trying to let the evidence make the argument for you instead of saying, here's what the argument is and here's the evidence that proves that. And so I think that's a little bit of a problem. You've got good data in the speech, but you're often assuming that we're going to be able to figure out what that data means instead of you're telling us what it means. And I think you need to be clearer on that in a number of places. Also, on the citation of the evidence, I think you do an okay job. Obviously, you struggled a couple of times with the names of some of the organizations or institutions that you're talking about, but I didn't think that was a big problem. But there were several experts that you cited. I assume that they were experts, mostly because their names were complicated. You don't really tell us what their qualifications are. Are they the director of a program? Are they a researcher or a scholar at a university? Are they a doctor who's in practice? I don't really know that. I just know their names, and by the way, don't ever ask me to repeat them because they were often, like I said, very complex. And I think you needed to do a little bit more qualifying those sources. But you did give a source citation on all that information. The weakest thing is still the problem about it being controversial. We talked a little bit about that. I thought you kind of addressed that a bit. Although you've got another statistic here that talks about 2% of the population is going to have some kind of problem. The significance of those problems, I think, it needs to be either minimized on your part or explained, because you've got this list of what the potential problems are, and 2% suffers from those problems. Well, that's 100 million people. That means 2 million people are going to suffer those problems, and some of those problems are death, which sounds to me like there maybe is a reason that maybe I'd rather have the flu. If that's one of those places where you ought to say, the likelihood of you dying from the flu is going to be a heck of a lot higher than it is dying from the negative reaction that somebody has to the flu. And that's, I think, a place where you needed a little bit more of that statistical comparison. There's a lot of reading going on. Sometimes it's understandable because you have a lot of complicated names that's going on there. But like I said, sometimes you just need to explain what your argument is while you're talking about it. And I like the summary. I thought you did a good job, like I mentioned to some of the other folks that have been doing, putting everything together right at the end. So this means this means this, this means this. That's why my position is the valid one. I thought you did a good job at that at the end.